Welcome to Building Teams with Teams & Co., where we explore how leaders can empower their teams, achieve ambitious strategies, and deliver exceptional customer service. Views expressed by guests are their own and may not reflect the views of Teams & Co.
If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Building Teams with Teams & Co. We are really excited to talk about today's topic. We've gotten a lot of feedback on how awesome all of our guests have been this year, so we appreciate that. We hope if you haven't heard all of the guests that we've invited that you go back, you listen to them. Please like, comment, share, give us a rating on our podcasts. And also, again, share them with your friends. We've interviewed a lot of great coaches, a lot of great business people this season. And I'm sure that your friends and colleagues would love to learn from them as well. But today, based on popular feedback, we are going to continue on our tips and tricks series, right? And sort of thinking about our Teams & Co. growth pillars. When we work with organizations, we work with them to accelerate their growth. And we believe that happens through three major pillars, right? So we want to delight our customers. We want to set an ambitious strategy to deliver those customers value. And then we want to empower our teams, help them be results driven to execute on that strategy. So today we're going to really talk about that middle piece, strategy. In the previous episodes, we've talked a little bit about the customer and customer discovery, but we're going to assume that, you know your customer, you know what you want to do, and now you're setting your strategy. And one of the things that we find with organizations is that, I know this is a little bit of a hot topic, but a lot of times organizations don't achieve their strategic plan, right? I think you've heard it on this podcast before. Which is Inc. magazine a few years ago said 67% of organizations don't actually reach their strategic goals. So that's 2/3 of organizations that are spending all that time strategic planning aren't actually meeting that strategic plan. And one of the reasons that we find that happens is because organizations aren't aligned across the organization. So what do I mean by that? If you've all been involved with a strategic plan, you make the strategic plan, you've got all these big growth ideas. And oftentimes what happens is that plan is given to all the executive team members, right? So in your organization, it might be VPs, it may be directors, depending on how large your organization is, but it goes to that team of executives, that leadership team, and they make team goals, right? So you think about, okay, the vice president of marketing gets it and they make a series of goals for the marketing team. The vice president or the COO or, your operations head gets that strategic plan and they make a series of goals for operations and so on down the line, right? This will go to sales, it'll go to IT, it'll go to finance, it'll go to customer support, all the different functional areas of your organization that are going to set team goals. What typically happens at this point is we find that the goals multiply. So maybe as an organization, you started off with 3 to 5 key initiatives to deliver value to your customer. And all of a sudden, now that the teams have made those goals, and kind of rolled them down, you might have 23 priorities. And you might say, well, of course, Tracy, that's normal, right? Each team has to do a little bit of a different thing. I would say yes and no. The reason I say no is because we still want to have the ultimate goal of success for each of our initiatives. So for example, say we're launching a new product, right? A new digital product. That might be an app. It might be a new website. If we have different teams thinking about that product in different ways, what we're going to do is we're going to cause a lot of friction on that team, that cross-functional team, right? So what do I mean by that? Let's say we have a strategic plan, and one of the plans is we're going to launch this new app. And we're going to launch this app because we believe this app's going to help our organization grow by 10%. We're going to grow our revenue by 10%. Now, to the marketing team, they may say, hey, you know what? Our goal with this new app is customer retention. We think that with this new app, we can keep or retain 10% more customers each year. And if we can retain those 10% more customers, that's going to lead to a 10% growth. Whereas the product team might be thinking about it in terms of customer acquisition. We're going to get 10% new customers. And with that 10% growth in customers, we'll get a 10% growth in sales. Now, Finance might be thinking about it as efficiency, right? They and the operations team may have gotten together and said, hey, this new system can help us take some of the steps out of our process of picking and shipping and fulfillment, and we'll get a 10% operational efficiency. So we're not talking about top line growth now. Now we're talking about bottom line, right? We're going to save 10% in our efficiency, and that's how this app is going to, further our development as an organization. Customer support might say, hey, you know what? We're also thinking about it in terms of efficiency and customer experience, right? So we think we're going to get a little bit of upside from customer experience and also a lot of efficiency if this app and this system could help us resolve calls in one phone call called one call resolution. Now, you're probably listening thinking, Tracy, what's wrong with all those goals? Those are great goals. And they are great goals. But what happens when each team picks their priority for the system, that creates friction in the cross-functional team. So if you're an executive and you're like, this is awesome, we have this great goal around how this product is going to help us grow as an organization. Then, all the executives have made their individual team goal about what success looks like. When those directors or those senior managers get in the room and they're talking to each other and they're trying to decide the next feature, there's probably going to be some friction and potentially a lot of debate that slows down the process of growth. Why? Because they're each prioritizing something different in that system. So the set of features that might help with new customer acquisition might be completely different than the features that will help us retain our current customers, right? Retaining current customers might be, how fast can I reorder? What does my account look like? Can I see all the different, orders I've placed over the last 4 years? Whereas new customers might be thinking about, okay, well, how easy is it to set up an account? How easy is it to get my first shipment? For customer support, if they're thinking about one call resolution, they're probably thinking about features and functionality around, loading FAQs into the system and, making sure that their team has the ability to close cases and have materials available during that phone call. Likewise, operations may be thinking, oh, this is great. We're going to integrate it with different fulfillment systems. We're going to have scanners, maybe, things that make our operations more efficient. As you can see, if each team is coming to the table thinking that success looks like a different set of features, this app or this program may not actually ever come to fruition because these debates won't be solved because there's not an overall set of metrics for what success looks like. And so this is why we talk to CEOs a lot about, it's great to engage your executive team in saying, okay, how do we take this strategic plan and roll it out? And you can do that a little bit as, each executive goes away, they think about it, they come up with some ways that they think that their team can help support that strategic plan. The step most CEOs, executive directors, presidents skip is the comeback meeting, right? And the comeback meeting is basically where all those executives sit down again and say, okay, when we think about these 3 priorities, how do we think about what success looks like for each of them? And each of those projects has to have a key set of performance indicators about what success looks like. And if they do, then those cross-functional teams know how to prioritize, right? So rather than those cross-functional teams going in and saying, no, as the operations team, we really have to go for efficiency, and, marketing saying, no, we've really got to go for customer retention, they're all looking at the same level of priorities, and they're all looking at what's most important to the organization, not to their specific functional area, but to the success of the organization. This comeback meeting, as we call it, will also help you as a CEO or an executive director, president, think about and recognize if any new priorities have snuck their way in, right? And so people don't do this because they're trying to ruin the process. They do it because as executive leaders, they really feel strongly about ways that they can help improve the organization's growth, right? But sometimes this is where new pet projects come to play. And when maybe at the beginning you had 3 to 5 priorities, which is probably the right number, you might start to have 7 or 8 priorities, maybe 9 priorities. And that's honestly a lot to have. And the reason we say that is because you have to think about, especially if you're a smaller organization, You need resources, you need people, you need money to fund those projects, you need, time. All of those things are not infinite resources in our organizations. So we want to be really careful about how we're deploying people's time. We want to be careful about how we're deploying our, investments as an organization. So making sure that we not only all agree on what are those really top priorities, we also have to agree on what we're not doing, right? So this comeback meeting is the final double check before you roll this out to your teams to say, okay, as an organization, we believe that these are our top priorities. Again, 3 to 5, especially for small organizations. Then we believe that these are the three, metrics that we're going to use to measure success within these priorities. And then we're going to say, and this is what we're not doing. So anybody who is working on these projects, we're no longer going to work on them, or they're going to be a lower priority, and we're going to make sure that we have the resources to do them before we bump them back up. So those are not going to be on people's goals. That's how we ensure nobody works on them, is that we don't set individual goals around those projects, right? And so a lot of times strategy becomes an ineffective document because we have scope creep along the way, right? So what happens today for a lot of organizations is they set the strategy, they give it to their different executive leaders, it becomes multiplied, right? There's more priorities on there, there's pet projects, there's different initiatives that are added, there's initiatives that we all agreed that maybe we should stop, still get added to people's goals. And so what happens is we have a lot of people working on a lot of different things, and we're not getting the return on investment or ROI on any of the projects. What we're recommending you do, again, is you sort of set that strategy. You have your executive team give input onto how can we achieve this strategy. And then you have a comeback meeting. And the comeback meeting says, yes, these are the top 3 to 5 things. This is how we all agree across the executive team. We're going to measure success so we can share with our team members what success looks like, and they can all rally around that. And here's what we're not working on. So we're going to give this list of no's to our directors, and they're not going to be added to anybody's goals. If they're on anybody's goals currently, they're going to be taken off, and we're going to make sure that all goals are around the top 3 to 5 priorities and what success looks like for those 3 to 5 items. Now, one of the tips that you might find helpful in this process is also instituting a sign-off process. And I know I can hear you all already being like, isn't that a little bit of micromanaging? And I say it's not micromanaging. It's just an effective process to make sure everybody is aligned on the process and on what's important. So what I mean by a sign-off process is, say you have, again, this cross-functional team that's working on an app, and you say, hey, these are the 3 priorities. Each quarter, when you define the roadmap, you go to all of the cross-functional stakeholders, right? You go to the CTO, you go to the marketing team, you go to the operations team, you go to the sales team, you go to the customer support team, and you say, this quarter, because these are our 3 major goals for the year, we're going to work on these sets of functions and functionalities and features for the system. And everybody signs off on that and says, yep, we agree. Now, the reason that's important is because there's so much going on in our day, right? So it just helps kind of gain that clarity to make sure, okay, yes, everybody's seen the document who needs to see the document. Everybody who has seen the document has agreed that that's what we're supposed to be working on. And again, when we get in those cross-functional meetings, everybody who's in there knows that their leader has signed off, so they can fully feel comfortable executing against those priorities and making it happen quickly. So again, this adds a level of speed. So yes, it's like one more step in the process, but it's not a step that you're doing every day. You're probably doing it once a quarter, just making sure that there's a written agreement. And then that way, if something comes up later on, we can say, hey, no, this is what we agreed to, and this is why we agreed to it, and here's everybody who signed off on it. And if you want to change it, totally fine. You know what? You can all have a discussion. You can update the document. You can get sign off again at that point. But again, it helps make sure that the no's stay no's. Nothing creeps in kind of outside of the process because, the loudest voice in the room said, hey, I think we should really bring this back, right? So a little bit of that process and, hygiene, so to speak, throughout the year will help you stay on track with your strategy. So again, it's good to make sure that you have a clear strategy. it's good to make sure that everybody on the executive team aligns to what does success look like for those few priorities that you have. With that, you can align all of your resources to those priorities, and then you can set up processes that require sign-off and change requests so that if anything needs to change throughout the year, you're all aligned on how that would happen, right? Things change. That's a totally normal way of business. You just want to make sure that you all understand the process and that there's a sign-off so no leaders are caught off guard and no team members are caught off guard, right? That's what tends to slow our teams down. If team members are unsure about what their leader wants to see, it's harder for them to execute and harder for them to move faster. So with all of these processes in place, what you build is effective cross-functional teams that know what success looks like, they know how they should be deploying their resources, and they know they have buy-in from their leadership team. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Again, our goal is to help more organizations reach their strategy, achieve their strategy, and grow their organizations. So these tips and tricks and these sign-off meetings and different processes that we're talking about, hopefully they work for you, and you can take nuggets from this episode and apply it to how your organization can achieve their strategic plan. If you have any questions, let us know. We're always available. You can send us an email. You can also use the hashtag AskTeams, AskTeames. You can use that on LinkedIn, and you can post a question on our social media, and we'll answer them on the podcast as well. Or set up a consultation. We're always happy to talk with leaders who are looking to accelerate their growth and empower their teams. And hopefully today you got some tips that can you got a few tips that can help you do both grow your organization and empower your teams throughout the year. We look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next week. In the meantime, please subscribe, give us a review on our podcast. We always love hearing what all of you think, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks.